Okay, so I wanted to rant about this game because it has made me go crazy more than a lot of games in a long time. I rant all the time. Any of my friends know it. I nitpick about everything when I'm playing a game. Even games I love, I sit there and think about all the things I'm like, like. And I've been trying to get better about ranting just because I know it drives some of my friends nuts. Um, Especially when it's like they're trying to show me a game they love, and then like how I'm just berating it and like pointing out things. I'm like, oh, why did they do that? Um, but this game, I don't really feel a sense of mercy towards because I don't feel like this game loves itself, and I don't know how else to explain it because everywhere I look in this game, it feels like people did work to get the game done, but it doesn't feel like anything was. Doesn't feel like it was directed by someone who loves the game, who had like a really clear goal in mind. At the very premise, we have a story design and a game design that do not fit each other at all. You've got the shut up. You've got this serious story that wants you to care, wants you to take it seriously, wants you to like feel bad for the characters and stuff when they tell you about how they watched their parents die or they have a terminal illness. Like they want you really emotional about these characters. Like, man, that sucks. But you chose a design style where I'm going to be going through this game and going through these levels over and over and over and over again, like even more than Left 4 Dead because you actually have progression in mind. You expect me to be going through this a ton of times because otherwise I won't get all the cards. I won't get all the skins. So you pick the style of seriousness and then you combine it with a game design of looping, of doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And that's a problem. It means that I'm going to not care anymore. I'm going to start getting really fucking tired of listening to Holly tell me for the 100th time about how she's seen everyone she loves die, how she didn't do anything, how sad she feels about all that. It doesn't work together. Those styles don't mix. They don't go together. You don't have a loop game that purely expects you to keep going through the same thing over and over and over again unless things are going to change each time, like in a reasonable way, not just like a couple quotes here and there, a little bit different. Like you've got Hades, that's a great example of a game that's like you're going through it over and over again, and it kind of wants you to take the story seriously, but it's also got nice humor mixed in. The game actually changes as you're going through it, but that's an appropriate way to do it. But this is just it's the same levels. It's the same things. There's just a couple randomized quotes and like maybe a little bit depending on which characters you're playing, but it's not enough. It's not enough. It doesn't go well together. But it's too late for that. That can't be fixed. There's nothing that can be done about that. It's clear that the scriptwriters don't have a particularly great sense of humor. There are a few funny lines. And they want the game to be serious, so we don't have like any interesting landscapes short of the hives now to traverse. It's not like Left 4 Dead where there was like, and people are going to be annoyed for comparing it to Left 4 Dead, but remember they did that to themselves, and I know that you've also probably heard that a million times. So I apologize for saying it, but it's true, in my opinion, that they sort of did that to themselves. They wanted to be compared to Left 4 Dead, and then they didn't compare to it. They didn't have characters who were as interesting, except maybe Hoffman, and they didn't have humor that was on that level or quotable lines on that level. There are some lines you kind of quote, but most of them that I quote in irony. The the other thing that drives me nuts about this game, like not even the base core premise, like that's annoying. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that the story and the design don't match up. But we can live without that. That's there's still a game to be had. Even if the story just doesn't connect anymore and only works like the first couple times you go through it. We can move past that and still have a fun. God damn it! Second. Go on, do not disturb. I apologize for anyone who heard that. But then we have issues of just like the actual game design decisions themselves that just don't fucking add up. One of the problems I have, and this is kind of a hot take, because I don't know many games that have realized this yet. But when you create things like cards that just straight up improve your damage or straight up improve your healing, it's not that much of a trade-off. It's often more of a like, oh, we have to plan everything around them having this much extra damage. And the way Back 4 Blood's designed is your damage can explode exponentially, which I know gets people excited and gets people like like Swing Point and all of them like really excited about how big their damage can get. I'm sorry that it's bad. It's bad that it does that because it means that they expect people to have that kind of damage, to have that kind of power behind what they do. And it makes them balance the game so that anyone whose dex is missing those things out, well, obviously if you're on Recruit or Veteran you can get through with your bare fists, but I mean like on Nightmare or whatnot, because the other difficulties are kind of, I don't know, they're kind of silly. But that's exactly the point. Is it's just the balance is completely off. It's all over the place. They can't know for sure how strong the people will be, so they just kind of assume that they'll have some like really strong people, like someone doing grenade build who can kill a boss like in seconds. And then it's like, okay, well, oh, you don't have that guy. Well, here's 5 bosses. We thought you'd be done in 15 seconds, but I guess you'll spend 6 minutes on this and all your ammo. It's bad. It's bad to have these crazy, just straight up damage and health buffing cards and like effects in most games. I feel like it's just a bad idea. The only time it's okay is in an RPG or something like that, where you are trying to control where they are in the game, how far they progress, make enemies like too tough for them just because of stats. That makes sense. But even then, you want to rein it to a certain degree. It's so that people don't just like die instantly because they walked into a slime from a new area. Anyways, so there's that. I think it would have been much better for them to just have only like interesting cards that do different things, which they will still probably indirectly influence your damage and health, but not 1,000,000%. Like you're not going to have so many multiplicative buff stacking that somebody's doing 3 to 4 times the damage they would do otherwise. So you can control the balance more. You can plan out how strong the players are going to be and how tough the challenge needs to be. But they just have it kind of exploding out of control. And it's bad for the game, and it's bad for, and this is another point. I feel like a lot of people, and I'm not sure if this is true of the streamers or not, because I haven't watched enough of them. Full real talk, I watched some of it, but not that much. This game wants teamwork, but it's only going to survive off of people playing together randomly. There's not enough like groups of friends that play together versus just random people. If you want a bunch of people working together in a team getting through a game, you need a design style more like Borderlands, where they're just going through it the one time. They're having a campaign, you know? This is a game you're going to be playing a lot and doing a lot of loops. So guess what? Your friends aren't always going to be available. And if you don't have friends, then you're always playing with randoms. And it's a game that's always meant to be played not with the AI, because the AI is pretty garbo. And then you have to play with randos, and randos are gonna have quite literally random decks. They're gonna have all sorts of nonsense. They're gonna pick weird characters and stuff. Like, no, you're not gonna have docs on the team. You're not gonna have people blowing up bosses. You're gonna be having missing pieces of the puzzle for what they expect. That's what No Hope made perfect sense to me. It's like, okay, yeah, only people playing that are going to be friend groups. That should be the only thing. There's a lot of people who got really annoyed by it and angry because they're like, well, I just want to play with randoms. And it's like, but they can't afford with their player base now to start splitting people up like that too. Unfortunately, if you want to play No Hope, you're gonna have to like go to a Discord and greet some people. But the game's not designed to be ready for playing with random people. A lot of the card choices have this inherent problem of your teammates can screw it up. Your teammates can make your deck effectively worse. They can, like, let's say I have 100% healing efficiency. Well, my teammate's gonna go pick up those pills and pop them himself for a sweet 25 temp HP that will be gone in 10 seconds. I could have given him so much more. I could have given him double or more the amount of temporary health. I could have given him trauma healing. I could have healed everyone else with group therapy, but he used the pills on himself. And that's another huge issue. Is the game is constantly putting your deck's capabilities in the hands of your teammates, which with random people is just asking for everyone to get mad at each other and have a bad time. It promotes toxic interactions where everyone's just getting mad at each other because, oh, I have this card that can disarm birds and we all get 25 copper. It's 100 copper. And he shot the birds. He activated the birds. Not only do I have a horde, which was already annoying, but that's fine because that was part of the normal game. Now I have this card that's making me extra pissed off at my teammates when they fuck up because we lost all this copper. Well, no. And then you have the people who, when they set off an alarm, will be like, well, time to set off all of them. So then we're losing out on so many hundreds of copper because this person's like, oh, well, I startled one bird. And you can't necessarily communicate with them because guess what? There's such a thing called a language barrier in these kinds of games too. Like, you can't always talk to other people. I've had more than one time where I'm dealing with people who don't speak the same language as me, or at least don't speak it very well. It just happens. There's not a great way to communicate. So having so much depend on teamwork and communication in a game that's primarily people playing randomly, and I count groups where it's just groups of two with two other randos. That's still pretty rando heavy. You've walked yourself into this situation where you just have a bunch of people playing who can't talk to each other, can't communicate to each other properly. Even if they can, people just make mistakes all the time and they ruin the effectiveness of each other's decks. It's kind of like, this is like a really weird example to bring up, but this happens in Deep Rock as well, where like if you have burning enemies take so much more damage, and then you have one guy on your team with the cryo cannon freezing things and instantly losing your burning, it's like, wow, my deck is fucking useless. I can't get anything on fire because this guy's always freezing it. Or not deck, loadout. The same thing happens in this game a lot. Too much is in the hands of your teammates, and obviously, like, the alternate solution's a little weird, in my opinion, but it's the best thing I can come up with. Is having cards that like give healing efficiency, do it for the team. And I know that immediately the concern is, well, but then people could stack it and get out of hand, so then you have to make it a single instance card, like the Team Recovery Room card. And then you have the problem of two people take that card and shut up. And now it's redundant. Well, it would have been redundant anyways if two people had the healing efficiency card. But humoring that, they could just add a system that when you hover over a card that someone else has already picked, or not even hover, when you have a card that someone else has picked, it could warn you, like, someone else already has this, someone else is already using this, you don't need to. When it comes to specifically the cards that have those problems where they only one instance can be active at a time. that would be an important change to make it so that you don't have to worry about randos letting you heal them. You've picked the healing card. You're making the team's experience better. But I know that that also bothers people from the perspective of, well, I just want my character to be doing the healing. You know, I get that. I get that you want your character to be doing the healing. You want people to come to you to get the healing, to essentially have to acknowledge your worth on the team. I feel that. I get it. But it's a problem with the design of the game in general. That's one of the reasons why I'm saying like I don't really like the stat cards anyways, is because the cards that should help you with healing, um the problem is everyone's going to have those items, so you have to think, well, if I don't have this first aid kit and they have the first aid kit, them having to walk up to me, drop the first aid kit so that I can pick it up and use it on them. It's just it it feels bad. It feels bad when you miss out on huge payoffs because you're playing with randoms and they either can't talk, don't have a mic, don't understand your language, and they just go ahead and use things on their own or in a panic, and everyone misses out on huge benefits because it's all been made to be so buffed. Rather than having cards that depend on your teammates giving you their items to heal, you could have other ones like Overwatch being, if it was made better, where it's not dependent on your teammates, it's dependent on you to position yourself and shoot enemies near your teammates. Overwatch sucks. I'm not talking about the game. I'm talking about the card that does the at 15 meters away or more when you kill something, it will then give temp health to everyone within 15 meters. Very cute on paper, doesn't work with pipe bombs, Molotovs, or anything like that. So very hard to get use out of since 15 meters is this far away. It's hard to be this far away and kill something that's also near your teammates that they're not also killing currently. And also to not catch yourself so out of position that you are stuck fighting. Because remember, riddance come from every fucking direction in this game. When a horde's happening, they spawn everywhere. They don't spawn from a specific spot. You can't figure out where the horde's coming from. They're coming from every direction. So you positioning yourself away from your team that far is just inherently asking for trouble. It's just a card that doesn't work well. But they could have more interesting cards that, like Doc's ability, for example, could have just been a card where if you're playing healer, you now get this extra way to heal your team. But it's unfortunately such a good ability, but it's also stuck on a character, which is another problem, which is characters having their own bonuses and powers. I know people sort of like it, but the problem with it is it means you get so many games where you go into it and somebody wants to play a specific character and that's the only character they like to play, and now it matters. In Left 4 Dead, it didn't really matter. There weren't that many people leaving because they couldn't play Coach. You still hear Coach's lines. There's some people who, get cranky about that kind of stuff. But it wasn't nearly as bad because it's not like Coach did better grenade damage or something. It was just a character. So you pick the character usually just because you wanted to hear their voice lines the most, or you enjoyed playing that character or role playing as that character. It's that sort of thing that this game doesn't think about any of that stuff. It doesn't feel like any of these things I've talked about have even crossed their minds. I'm sure some of it has, but it just... Let me get to the most egregious example of I don't even know how much they even care about this game. Like, it feels like they don't care. This bullshit. This fucking pop-up bullshit. This is stupid. If you can't tell, if you haven't played this game before, it looks fine, right? It looks fine on paper. You get the power, which I'm assuming you think is damage if you haven't played this game before. You get the range, which you think probably tells you how far it goes before it loses optimal damage, or maybe the bullet disappears. And then you got the accuracy and the handling. Maybe that's recoil, mobility, how fast you go, maybe. But you're tricked. You've been betrayed. All of this is nonsense. Every last ounce of it's nonsense. You've been bamboozled. You've been lied to. Because this has 100 meters, right? Actually, let's make it really obvious with a shotgun. This says 40-meter range. Now, something you need to know about shotguns, just for a little context, is that the first pellet of it does more damage than the other pellets. So we look at this, you'll see there's one that does 18.8. So the minimal damage this can do, let's hope this actually hits. All right, 6.4 damage with the primary pellet. So that was 58 meters away. So that's way out of 40 meters. That makes sense. It does the minimal damage, right? Well, let's try this guy from 8 meters away. Okay, so... Oh, there was a headshot in there. Excuse me. What's going on? Okay, penetrating bullets, I think. Okay, it's still doing a little damage. And what? We reached 6.4. We reached the minimum damage that this guy took. Way out there. We're only 15 meters away, but it said 40 meters. It said 40 meters. It's bullshit. And also, by the way, what the firepower doesn't mean anything either. So we've got this range. It says 40 meters. It has nothing to do with how far it aims. These are just numbers. They just threw them on there. Why would you have 40M and then also show distance on my ping and then be like, nah, let's match up. So that's so obvious to me of a problem that this card is full of nonsense that you can't care about your game and let something like this go. This is one of the first things people see when they play the entire game is they walk up to a new weapon and they see these numbers and they're all lies. They're all nonsense. This firepower, this damage, right? It's not 80. It doesn't do 80. It does a completely different number. Let's get something more obvious. I'm gonna get the Barrett. All right, we got 100 as the firepower, right? Bam, 132. That's not 100. To do 100, I have to be a very specific range. Oh, well, maybe that's the damage at mid-range or so, but not really. Bullet penetration affects damage. The firepower, excuse me. It doesn't actually change how much damage I do, but now it says 110. So you would think 10% more damage. No, it's 132 still. It's a lie. It's tricking you. Even stumble affects it. So we've got, bullet stumble. Well, now it says once again that this is doing 10% more damage. This was the thing telling me that the base one would do 10 less. But again, it's just going to be 132. It's just a trick. It's just numbers they put in on a string, and then these are set to do very specific math, where the bullet stumble, 50% bullet stumble, will do a 10% increase on the firepower. So if we have this 70, it will go to 77. It doesn't do anything to the damage at all, but it just says that it does that. So these cards are useless. You have so much room. The descriptions are useless at the bottom. Like, no, I've legitimately not read them, and I don't know anyone who has, because it doesn't really tell you any useful information, except for maybe on the shotguns where it reloads one at a time. But people will know that the moment they shoot and reload one time. But what they need to know, that they can't know otherwise unless they have knowledge is power, and knowledge is power is still not going to help them because all their damage modifiers are going to affect the damage they do and the distance, is how much damage does this do, and what is its actual range? What's its min and max range? I don't need to know the handling, because handling's also really arbitrarily affected by ADS speed? Swap speed? Like, what? Explain to me what this means, because I don't know. Like, handling doesn't mean anything. It's an arbitrary... All these numbers... At first, I thought maybe they were, like, arbitrary collections of, like... Oh, it does this much... Well, if you combine bullet stumble, penetration, damage, and the range, then you'd get the firepower. They're round numbers. They were just typed in. It's very obvious that they were just typed in, and then they are just manually modified by these. It's terrible. Honestly, when I see stuff like this, it makes me think everyone on the Back 4 Blood team is a part-timer. Except maybe the people working the art assets, because the art is, it's really well made. But it feels like so many people, this is not the game they care about. It feels like they don't even like Back 4 Blood. Maybe they like the fact that they made a game and they'll promote it and they'd never say they don't like it. But how could you like this game and see glaring issues like this right from the start, where you look at the card and it's just lying to the player immediately, completely tricking everybody into what it actually does. Firepower 850, not really, more like 650. It's all just nonsense. I've played so much this game and put so much work into understanding it, and they don't. It feels like they don't care at all. It's just nonsense everywhere, lies and poor card decisions. This game exhausts me, and I want to love it, but with the Hive update, the damage and everything got even more out of control. So now the balance is getting even more out of whack because they're like, well, what if they have the legendary AA-12 plus 50% damage, infinite range? Because you put an infinite range on a shotgun, that's absurd. Because that it sounds so fun on paper, but the game doesn't want you to have fun. They want you to have a quote unquote, not quote because no one said this, but it's clear by the design. They want you to have a balanced challenge. They have said before they want you running to the safe room with a horde on your feet, like worried. Like they want that thrill. That's what they're going for, apparently. Well, it's all in order to pull that off. They have to make sure no matter how powerful you get, you can't just walk through everything. So things just get way out of hand. They spawn way too many specials that all have way too much health. Because if you had the right cards, they wouldn't have too much health. You'd be fine. You could get through it no problem. If you had the right build, the right parts, you made sure to unbolt your weapon the right way to get the. It's like a weird game of strategy and FPS that really limits creativity in what you pick and what you choose to do, unless you're being carried by teammates who are actually picking the right thing. I feel like there's like one character who's free to flex and do whatever they want, but then you need one person who can kill all the commons, usually melee, because they give a lot of temp health, and they usually want at least one medic to clean up damage. And then you want one person who can just slaughter bosses and specials pretty much instantly, like a sniper. And you're just stuck that way because if you want to be like, hey, I'm going to have fun and run an economy deck, which gets lots of money, like, well, it doesn't really help that much. It's like it's a fun flex option for maybe one person to take, but if two people are running kind of whatever they want and they don't min max into their build, then you usually have a problem. Of course, teamwork with the proper teammates can overcome a lot of that, but that's again goes back to my point of this game's primarily played by randoms with randoms. That's just how it works. That's how these games will always work. You just can't have you have four people. You can't really organize playing together all the time. And there's a lot of people out there who want to play games who don't have friends. I've looped back several times, and I apologize for it. I'm just confused as to what they want. They don't care. I think they care a little bit because it is their game, but I don't think any of them. It doesn't feel like any of the devs really love this game because it wasn't given any love. The art is about the most love that I see in the game. The scripts don't feel like they love the characters. The because well, or maybe they already love the characters is what I should say. I don't know how many of you have run into scripts like that before, where when the person already loves the character that they've written, they forget to make the audience give a shit. So that's probably more accurately describes how these characters feel, because I'm sure whoever's writing everything knows most of their like backgrounds and their histories and like what the characters really like deep down, like so they they love their characters. But the most they do into trying to get me to give a shit about Holly is have her tell me her tragic backstory or give mom terminal illness. It doesn't. I just don't care about. I don't care about them. I can't care about them. The funniest lines that I remember is a single word from Walker telling Holly no when she's trying to go off on a monologue. I don't know, dude. I don't know. I've ranted my heart out. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to mention about this game that drives me insane. But I think that pretty much wraps it up.